Hello and welcome to Alfresco Tech Talk Live. My name is Ola Heilskov, and today I'm joined with John and Denys. We'll be talking a lot about the Alfresco content application that's built on top of the ADF. Now, usually we have Francesco Corti, my colleague, producing these events, but he just had a beautiful baby this weekend, so he's off on paternity leave. So congratulations to Francesco with the new baby. We can't wait to see more pictures and hear all about it. So with that being said, I have a few announcements before we get into today's agenda. First up is the next office hours will be on February 23rd. This will be with Richard Esplin. I can't remember the details of what they're talking about. And then there's the meetup in London on March 1st. And apparently there's a meetup in Florida as well. I don't have all the details, just the dates. I suggest going to community.alfresco.com to check out the details on when that's happening. So if you're in the London or Florida area, we definitely recommend you go and check that out. Second of all, I just wanted to thank everybody for being at DEF CON a couple of weeks ago. It was an awesome event. It was so good to see everybody. I know Kristen is working hard to get all the recordings up on YouTube. We've already seen the first batch of them, and she's hoping to finish most of this during this week. So today we're going to talk all about the Alfresco content application that Denys and John's been working on, which is built by the Application Development Framework. We announced this here on, I can't remember, was it Tech Talk Live or was it Office Hours in December, shortly after we announced ADF 2.0. We also, Denys had a session at DEF CON talking about this topic, but we wanted to get back and get Denys understand and talk more about how to extend it and show some more live coding, some examples on how to do various things with ADF. So the agenda today is, I'll spend a couple of minutes now on announcements. I want to hand it off to John so he can introduce himself if you're not familiar with who he is and what he does. He will have one PowerPoint slide with a roadmap just so people know what's coming with the content app, what's the intention and how we're building and the approach. And then we hand it off to Denys to really get into the details and some live coding and everything. So John, I pass it on to you.
Thank you, Ola. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining today. So my name's John Knowles. I'm a product manager at Alfresco. My area of focus is client applications. So I look after our enterprise desktop sync solution, which is a Windows and Mac client, mobile applications for iOS and Android, and also the ADF content application. So I just want to spend 2 minutes with one slide, and I promise it is only one slide, talking you through what our plans are with the content app since we launched it last December. So just a quick recap, the content application is an example application which is open source project, available in GitHub for people to take the source code and do what you wish with it. What we delivered back in December was a very basic file management application. So you can log into the application using your Alfresco credentials, browse the content repository, open files up, download them, move, copy, all of that sort of basic file management stuff. What we're working on at the moment, and we hope to release probably beginning of March, will be an enhanced viewer. So Denys and the team have been working really hard on this. The enhanced viewer brings in better rendition support, so you'll be able to call for renditions from all the different file types that Alfresco Content Services supports. It brings in enhanced video playback, so we're now actually doing range requests from the API to play larger files back, so we get a bit of a video, bit of a video, bit of a video to make the playback nice and smooth. I think the same applies to audio as well. And Denys has also got some cool things to show when it comes to image manipulation within the browser as well. So that's the new viewer that's coming in. So it's an iteration on the existing viewer you have today. And then as we look out to the next release, which we'll hope will be around a month or so after that, we're going to integrate the existing version manager component that's available in the ADF into this application. And we're also going to take a look at the info drawer component and display metadata and allow people to edit some metadata as well. And we're trying to approach this with the viewpoint that we'll have some standard metadata in there, but obviously where you have custom models in your content services platform, you'll be able to easily configure the application to display other types of metadata that obviously we don't know about. And one area we're going to explore as well is how to run the application in an S3, AWS S3 bucket. Because Angular is a client-side only framework, there's no reason why it can't be stored in a relatively cheap storage bucket instead of running an Nginx server. So this is an area for us to investigate, and then we'll maybe have some documentation on it. And then the big important piece of work that we're starting to look at is faceted search. So the faceted search will be a set of components that we will build in the ADF first. Then we'll wait for the ADF release that includes those components and integrate them into the app. But Denys and the same team are working on these components. So we'll have a container that people can put their facets into, and then we'll have some out-of-the-box examples of what those facets can be. Multi-selects, dates pickers, number ranges, that kind of thing. And that probably takes us out to around April, May time. We're still going through some sort of design and sizing work on those search components. Those are the top things we're working on at the moment. And then coming up next, after those, hopefully taking us out sort of May, June, July, and August, will be sort of quick sharing files, library management, and this is probably a more familiar term, would be site management, where you can add users to sites, create sites, and so on. Managing the permissions on content, so enabling, disabling inheritance, and so on. And then further out, we'll look at comments, folder rules, and maybe some governance services integrations with declaring records. I think that covers the sort of short and medium-termish roadmap. And back to you, Ola.
Yeah, so thanks for sharing that roadmap. Obviously, John and I work closely together on this topic since I look after the ADF from a product management point of view, and John runs the content application. There's lots of coordination between the teams, so it's really good to see real applications coming up of the ADF. One thing that I did forget to mention is we are monitoring the chat, so if you the YouTube chat, you can ask questions, or you can ask questions on the RC channel on chat.alfresco.com. I will be monitoring it and answer any questions. We do have a bit of a delay, so if you don't answer your question right away, I will make sure we circle back and get to it. And the last thing is that we will be stopping at the bottom of the hour sharp, as I have another obligation I need to get to, and the only one with permission to hit the stop broadcast button. So we will be ending on time today. So Denys, I'll hand it over to you. Maybe you just want to quickly introduce yourself, and then let's share your screen and see all the good things that you can share with us today.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Denys Vuika. I am the ADF developer and also the content application tech lead. I'm going to show you a sneak peek of things that are coming with both ACA and ADF in terms of the viewer enhancements, and we'll also show some of the live coding, how to show how easy it is to customize the viewer. So let me quickly share my screen. So you are looking at the latest version of the content application, that is the development branch. As we mentioned earlier, the whole development is open. So besides the master branch that contains the latest released and stable version, you can also pick at the development branch, the same as in the ADF. Both projects have development branches where people put all the latest and all the fancy stuff there. As John mentioned, we are going to release a greatly improved viewer component that addresses a lot of different scenarios, including all the partitions that are all the renditions, sorry, that are supported by the platform. For example, I will scroll the list. All of these MIME types will be supported in this or that form. Where possible, we'll use the native viewers. Where not possible, we will request the rendition for either image or PDF. So I will just quickly show a couple of things here. For example, the SVG files. So Image viewer will get a new floating toolbar that allows you to zoom in, zoom out content. That may help a lot when looking at things that we really need to zoom in. It also supports the panning, and we use the special hardware accelerated styles for panning, so it should be very fast, super efficient on very huge images. So you can see something. Besides that, we got the carousel mode, so depending on whether you open the folder in the trash can, in the shared files, in the personal files libraries, you will be able just to scroll through the files and to see the content. And we also got image rotation as well. So if there's something scanned in the wrong direction, you can just quickly rotate this back. So yeah, another thing is that we started to keep all your preferences in terms of sorting. So every page has its own sorting. And if you, for example, want to sort the file libraries by title, you can still have the personal files by modified date, by name, whatever. The good thing is that once you share the link to the file with someone, we will take the the destination formatting. So everyone with his own preferences will be able to scroll through the documents. And a bit of customization. So when we say that the ACA is fully based on the ADF components, that means that you can refer to the entire set of the documentation ADF has. So we try to keep very minimum set of glue between the components, and the rest can be taken from the documentation from the ADF side. So just to prove that, for example, we can go to the viewer component. I just have this running. This is the viewer in the ACA that just wraps the original ADF viewer and provides some additional settings, if you will. And for example, if you want to extend the viewer with the custom sidebar, we can copy and paste this property. And once we are reloaded, for example, we can see this button with the sidebar. The sidebar is empty because the only thing viewer provides is the sidebar component and all the handling that is required to display to the right side, to the left side, and many other stuff. So, for example, if we want to go further, we can put in that sidebar another component. In my case, it will be the metadata. So I'm copying the template, pasting the template, and saying that, okay, the sidebar will take this template as the sidebar template. So I'm clicking save. You can see this is very fast recompiled. The browser is reloaded. And next time I click this button, you can see the metadata. The good thing is that the ADF takes care of the rest. So for example, if I want to edit this metadata, I can click the edit button. I can type my text here and save it. So for example, if I go here next time, you can see the metadata is preserved. And it provides a lot of more information here. If I want, for example, like see the EXIF and many other groups. So there's a lot of documentation, a lot of new stuff will appear with the next release of the ADF and ACA, but I'm just giving a sneak peek of the things. And for example, another one is I can go to the docs. So one thing about the docs is that this is the front end part where you can see the details on all the components we have. You can see the API. We keep improving the docs. Here, what's more important, you can see the source code just to see what's inside, what you can do with that, and so on and so forth. Even the template, if you want some CSS hacking there. So in our case, we, for example, can go and say, okay, we want the info drawer component there, so that we have multiple tabs. So for example, instead of, besides the metadata, we would like to have, for example, versioning, something like that, any custom code. So I'm wrapping this with the info drawer component, and I'm taking the info drawer tab called activity and putting that. So you can see I'm just pasting the code. And we are waiting for this image to be reloaded. So next time when I click this, you can see there's the info drawer here, there's activity tab, and there's the default set of metadata properties. This is fully customizable. We can do whatever we want to do with this, but by default, it shows everything here that we want.
Then there's one quick question that came up. Is it possible to have the info drawer shown there by default, or is it always that you have to go and click the button in the top right corner?
I think it needs to be clicked, but we can take the suggestion for improvement and preserve the state. It will be fairly easily to do.
All right.
So I've just added a second tab, calling it custom. I believe it's already reloaded. Not yet. Oh, sorry, I've put it in the wrong. Oh, sorry. So yeah, I added the custom one, and the custom tab is obviously empty right now, but you can put any content. The good news is that every time you add the custom property, we give you access to the underlying node if you're looking at the ACS content, or some other information if you're looking at APS content. So the tab itself can contain multiple components that rely on the node we are showing. And by the node, we mean all the properties, all the metadata, all the information that is loaded from the platform about this file. So you can build more rich experiences here based on the underlying information. And yeah, if, for example, we go and try to open the zip, for example, we do show previews of the zip as a PDFs. And for example, my favorite one is a TIFF. TIFF is an image, but not many people know that TIFF can contain multiple pages, and at this point it turns into the multi-page TIFF, and in our case we turn that in a PDF document. So you see at a very small image with multiple pages, and you can see the metadata. That is a TIFF image, and you can edit some additional stuff, for example, the camera. And yeah, so this is like a very good example to show how we converge things in the viewer. And the last thing is about media. As John mentioned, we do now support the range requests. That means that you can see all kinds of videos there. And if you can see, the first bunch of range here at the bottom is loaded. And if you start, it will load the rest. So more of that will be in the subsequent releases, but this is like a sneak peek of things that we're working on right now. Yeah, I think this is the main set of things.
And I actually just, while you're showing that, I just went and checked the documentation for the viewer, and there's actually a show sidebar, both the allow sidebar and show sidebar properties that you can enable, so it will show it by default when you get in there. So just another great example of documentation being up to date.
Yeah, so there's a lot of more stuff than we show. If you go to the docs, there's many allow things that allow you to show the print button, the share button, sidebar positioning, for example, left to right interfaces and right to left ones, and many things. You can even replace entirely the toolbar with your own one, and many other things. So yeah, we keep updating the docs.
So one question that comes up frequently is the way we've just customized this component. Is this upgrade safe? What happens when the next version of ADF comes out? Like, I know when we're in the context of the content app, it's a bit different. But if I'm inside my own ADF application, I'm using the viewer, I've done some of the extensions that you've just shown. What happens when the next ADF release comes out? Is it going to break, or is it going to be safe?
Yeah, it should be safe, because this is how we put the contract with the external developers. We just maintain a single property called sidebar template. There's also inline one, just for those who want to do that inline. But this is the property. The rest is owned by the ACA in our case. So this is where we put what we want here. And once the viewer is upgraded, we just need to know that this property is still supported until it will render it as it's needed. The rest is just the vanilla Angular components and rules of rendering, if that answers your question.
Yeah, I think it does. And one of the things that's really powerful here by using this method of content projection to project your own custom templates into the component is you can take control of the sidebar, of the toolbar, of either side of the content being rendered, and you can start pulling in third-party components or your own custom components in here. So you're in full control of what you want to display. And again, being upgrade safe, this is really good way of extending and using the components.
Yeah, and we also allow you to populate the toolbar with buttons, show more, burger menus, and many other things. Yeah, you will see a lot of examples in the content application. So I suggest picking in the source code frequently to see how we combine those components, how we enable things, how we use features.
Another question about the viewer. So does it only render content that's being served up from the Alfresco repository, from ACS, or from process services, or can you feed it any kind of URL? What does it support?
Yeah, it supports multiple things. That is why we are very careful in upgrading and adding features. So it supports the file nodes. This is to take content from ACS. We recently added the shared links. So for example, if you want the shared link experience like it was in the share with no authentication and just showing people the public content for the shared links, it will do all the stuff automatically, take care of everything. You just give it the link ID and it displays. There's a common URL file value that you just give whatever from the internet, and it tries to detect the extension or the content of the MIME type by the content it is getting, and we'll do the rest. And there's a lot of customization. We got even scenario, for example, for APS when you do the blob. So your application knows how to get the data, or maybe it generates on the fly like PDF or whatever. And it just gives you the blob of raw data and it displays. So there's very granular controls here. And we support two modes, the overlay and the inline one. So for example, if you see this viewer is the inline one because we take the entire page for this and allow you to copy the URL and to paste and get the same file somewhere. But there are cases when you want the overlay one. For example, when clicking something, attachment on the form, and it just shows up on the top of the form. So yeah, we keep extending the APIs here, but whatever we do, we check that it is both the content and process world covered.
Excellent. Another question that came in, maybe I'm not sure if this is a question for John or for myself or for you, Denys, but the question is, how does the viewer work in a mobile setting and state of mobile tablet usage of ADF in general?
Yeah, this is pretty good. We already had some examples and testing for the mobile. and we keep improving these things. So yeah, it should be very fast. I've seen that on the mobiles, the PDF viewer scales pretty good and takes less CPU and the amount of time to render the huge book. But yeah, we keep improving this, and maybe we'll prepare separate demos for that.
And from an ADF point of view, I can add and talk a little bit to how we address it. So from an ADF point of view, by default, the components, we try to have sensible, responsive behaviors. So each individual component will have a good behavior on its own when you display the viewer or the listing or using any of the components. If you use one component, it's going to be great and it's going to work on a mobile. Now, the question is now, if you decide to pull together 6 different components into one page side by side, then the individual components will have responsive behaviors, but you as an application developer have to go in and make those decisions on what happens when the screen is resized. If you're viewing this on a tablet, maybe you can't cover it all, maybe it can't all fit into one screen. That's when you as an application developer have to make those decisions. Do you want this to collapse into a menu? Do you want this to be stacked under each other, or some of it maybe it disappears, maybe it switches out some of the things? That's something that you have to think about, because again, each component is individual, and they can't know necessarily about the overall circumstances that they live in. If they live in a container with 5 other components, you need to decide what happens there. But it is definitely one of the areas that we're continuing to improve and invest in, and figure out what that means. One area that we know we need to do more work on is the content selector. So while it might work on a mobile device, it might not be the intended behavior we want on a mobile device. So that's one of the areas where we're working with our design team to figure out what that means, what that experience should be like. If you have any issues around mobility, please reach out and have a chat with us. And I think that's just about it from questions. Yep. You can carry on now, Denys.
Yeah, I think this is all I was going to demo today. So we can switch to questions if needed.
Okay. So apart from the viewer, so we've been, I wanted to just go back and dig a little bit deeper into the metadata component that you showed, because it's one of the new things that we added in ADF 2.1, and not a lot of people realize what's in there. So if you could just bring up the viewer with the info drawer quickly.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
All right. So what we see right here is the this is the info drawer with the metadata component as it was in ADF 2.0. Now, in 2.1, we added more capabilities, so we can actually hit the more button on more information on the bottom, and now we can see all the different properties you have in there. They are grouped by aspects, so by default it will go in and it will show all aspects, and it will exclude some of the system aspects like ownable and those kind of good things, but everything else will be shown in here. Now, there's a ton of configuration you can do on it. Denys, I don't know if you're familiar with the configuration we have for the metadata component, but essentially it goes to the extent where you can define, I want to display these particular properties or these particular aspects with these properties. There's some wildcard matching and lots of good things in there to really define what are the metadata you want to show. In addition, you can also configure that in the JSON file. So this is actually something you can do at runtime instead of build time. So that some of it shows some of the direction we're taking with a lot of these components. We did the same thing for the document list with the presets, where you can define the columns that you want to see in the document list and in the task list and the process list, I believe, where you can configure all of that in the app.json.conf. So you can do that at runtime instead of having to do that at build time and coding time.
Yeah, this is what I'm just sharing on my screen. So this is the most latest. This is another sneak peek on what's coming soon. So we got the aspect-oriented configuration where you can get full control over what aspects to show. Even create your own set and get the data from different aspects if that's needed. So
So there's also been talk about the version manager. It's one of the early components we've added in. Can you talk a bit about it, Denys?
Yeah, so there's another component that we have is a version management. We can try even to integrate it if you want right now. So it's already in the demo shell application. I think it's already documented. So yeah, I will show that as an example. So that was that was saying. So we got the node. Every time the viewer shows something for the ACS content, it has the node. And that means that on the second tab, we can integrate another component that is binding to the same node and showing some else. In our case, this is the version manager. And if we switch now to the image, you can see that in my custom, there's the version information here. There's a list of the versions of the files, also the ability to upload a new version. And if there are more than one version, I think I need just the same name for now to upload a new version. And we can also restore to the original version right now. So you can see that I've uploaded, just with a delay, the version number 2, and I could restore to any of those versions automatically. And this is done just by adding one single component to the tab. So for example, I will call this versions. So until we use the APIs from the content services under the hood, and yeah, there are also support for commands and for other stuff that you can add if needed. And
so I think,
yeah,
it's great to see the version manager. And again, this is one of the early attempts at the version manager. Obviously, we will continue to iterate on it as we get more feedback and support stuff like is this a major or minor version that you're uploading? Maybe you can add a comment, maybe you can see the comments, but it just shows the basic functionality. Something that we don't have, and I got a question here from the audience that about the version manager. Can we preview the recent versions or the previous versions? And unfortunately, the APIs don't allow us to get the renditions for the previous versions, so that's not something we support yet. But as soon as we get those APIs into to ACS, you bet we'll be looking at how we could integrate that. I think it's really good to see the powerful value here, that you can, just a few lines of code, you can get an info drawer, you can start editing the metadata, you can see the version list in there. It really starts to show some promise. I have a few other questions for you, Denys, that come in from the audience. This is actually an internal request. And I'm sorry to be sticking up you. I know you didn't prepare for showing whatever people would be throwing at you, but we're going to try anyway. So about localization, we saw that you added in the activity and the custom labels or tabs into the info drawer. How would you go about adding a label and translate that into a different language? That's something that's really important for, at least in Southern Europe parts. We have lots of people who want to translate and localize into their languages. Can you talk to how that works with the Content App and ADF a bit more broadly?
Yeah, this is a very good point. There's one feature that ADF supports, is that application always gets the highest priority. So even if you want to customize any language string from the ADF, it can be done easily from the application. You just need to know the JSON path of the property you want to modify. And the application itself has its own set of resources that is displaying on the top of the ADF, just for application purposes. And there's a set of files. You can easily add a new file here. And we also got these in the app config JSON, we got the language picker integrated. So if usually, traditionally, application detects the language and uses your locale or settings from the browser. But sometimes there are cases, for example, when you are traveling or whatever, that you want to do that explicitly. So we got the language picker. Again, this is the ADF component that we integrate that allows you to switch on the fly the languages. So the picker is very simple. It takes a set of languages from this from the very same config file. So for example, if you are trying to add some Arabic or something that is not supported natively, you just add this key. This is the locale key. It's like the official internet name. And the label to show, and yeah, application will pick that up. We'll even have these examples somewhere, how to add the missing language, but it should be very simple. So the key point for everyone to remember is that you can change anything in the ADF, in any component, by just knowing the path. So in our case, the language has the path like app language. If you take a pic on the, let me show. For example, the core library. This is like how the start form title goes. If you just copy paste this block in the application and change it to whatever, you will have this applied on the fly. So this is a very powerful thing.
Can you try and show us if you wanted to add in a new string for the tab we added into the info drawer? Just I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but I think it'll be valuable to just see adding a new string. That'll be quite cool.
Yeah. Okay. So I will introduce like demo. Something like that. So I click save, the application reacts. You can see that it automatically reloads. So all the configuration we have watch these files as well. And in the preview, I can say that this is not the versions. This is actually the label, and we can bind it like. And we need demo.title. So I'm hitting save. And of course, I need to switch to the English back. So this is the NUS title. Now, if if we have time, I will just copy this, and let's go to the German. Clicking save, just waiting for the application to reload.
Didn't know you were a native German speaker.
I was studying German. To German, you can see the UI changes, and just to show that this is like changing as well. The rest, I think, is the localization team job, just to fill those. So as a developer, we just give the keys that, okay, we've introduced new keys. The rest can be covered. And the same for the UI. I think for the sake of simplicity, I won't be adding the new file, but this is pretty much the same. You just add the new file, and it will switch automatically.
That's very cool. I think maybe this is, I'll look at cautiously at Jon, but there was talks about faceted search. Is there any early previews we can share about it, or is it too early?
It's too early for faceted search. We haven't started building anything yet. So we are pretty much 90% of the way complete with our user stories. So we use the format of user stories for requirements for developers. And we've got probably 90% of the design work done. And then Denys, myself, and the team will get together, go through them in detail, make sure they're all ready for implementation, get some sizing done, and then the team will start to do the implementation. And it's going to start off with a container. So the container will be the place where you can insert your individual facets that you want. So you might have a list facet for multi-selection to send them off to connect to maybe usernames. Then you might have a date facet to connect to the modified date field. And we're going to build each of those facets as separate components that will be put into the ADF. Once they go into the ADF, then we can, and we get a release of that ADF, so it's on a monthly release cycle, then we can start using that version of the ADF to build out that functionality in the content app itself. So we don't take, we might work on betas during our development cycles, but when we release a version of the content app, it will be fully released ADF code as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes good sense. I know people are anxious. This is a big deal for a lot of people, so I think it's going to be good. And we're probably going to come back and show a bit more about the search features in a few months when we have the full story. But again, you can always go to the GitHub and check out the development branch or follow along, or probably even if you want to have a conversation about it. I think John will be more than happy to talk to anyone who wants to use the content app and extend it.
Definitely. Also, our Jira project is public, so you can access the ACA project in Jira, and where we're building some ADF components, you'll see links through to the ADF project. So you'll actually see the designs and the stories that we're working on in the ADF projects at the moment. And obviously, these projects are open source, so if people fancy chipping in and working with us on this stuff or getting ahead of us, that would be awesome to get contributions. So we're always on the lookout for people who are willing to pick up some of this work as well. And it doesn't have to be new components that we're building. Maybe you want to have a go at the metadata drawer that Denys has done. You can see it's in our roadmaps. We plan to do it anyway. If that's work you want to look at and contribute, the more the merrier. That would be awesome.
Yeah, and we did see some good contributions during the hackathon at DevCon a few weeks ago. We saw the edit in Office, edit online features added into the content app. Actually, that was really cool to see, and we're following that really to see how we can integrate that and have that be part of ADF. So lots of good things coming up. There's one question left that I wanted to address, and I haven't. I think it's starting to dry up a little bit of questions, just monitoring all the different channels. So let's tackle this one and see if that sparks some more conversation. So following DevCon, we had good conversations about extensibility. Is there any news? Anything we progressed? Anything? So I'll take a first stab at answering this question. So we had good conversations at DevCon about this topic, and Bindu went home and wrote up a nice set of requirements, which is all in the community portal in Jive, where he wrote up, like, here are all the different kind of things that we'd like to see from an extensibility point of view. So just to be clear, when we're talking about extensibility, we're talking about how we can extend the application without having to rebuild it. For instance, now that we have the content app, it's out there. What if you wanted to add a new viewer extension or a custom sidebar to it? How can you configure that and apply that as a module without having to recompile or rebuild the application? So there's some good discussions around it, and the main takeaway here is we hear you. We definitely won't ignore this. We are keeping the momentum up. We've had a bunch of internal meetings to figure out what this means, how we support this, what options do we have, and looking a bit about the past and the future. What can we learn from the past? How can we do this moving forward? We have made progress in the area. So Denys has actually been working on a proof of concept on what that might look like, and we're starting to validate that internally to make sure that it fits our own requirements, because once we get to that point where we feel good about it, we will share it with the ecosystem. So we'll go out, we'll talk to some of you guys. Maybe we'll do a Tech Talk Live. Maybe we'll do some one-on-one meetings. Maybe a group meeting. Could be a hangout. We don't know what the format is, but we'll reach out and present the solution, or not the solution, the proposed solution, so we can get some feedback. What we don't want to happen here is that, oh, you want something with extensibility, and we go off and we do something with extensibility, and we come back and say, here it is. Isn't it great? You all love it now. That's not how we want to do it. We want to make sure that this is a conversation, that we hit the right targets, and that we hit the right use cases. So it may be that the solution we come up with, that it's a good first step, but it could maybe need more work on it. It could be that it's missing features. Just wanted to make it clear that when we, within the next few weeks, I don't have a fixed timeline for it yet, when we come out and suggest something and show what we've been working on, that won't be necessarily the finished solution. That will be our proposal, and we want you guys to try and have a stab at it and see, is that actually doing what you guys need and what we all think it needs. It's something that we take very seriously, and we are looking into how we can support this one way or the other. Some of it will be done on the ADF level, on the framework for components, and how we extend it and customize it. The thing you saw when we talked about the metadata editing, where you can configure that through the JSON file, that's one part of it, where we can start to externalize a lot of these things. But there's some more to it where we can't do that through configuration, where it's really about injecting your code onto new applications or into a specific place. And we do seem to have a fairly good solution for that could actually that could work and solve the issue. So while we don't have the answers yet, just be patient a little bit more, and we will come and share the solution with you guys. So if you have any questions about it, feel free to reach out to me directly. More than happy to pick up that conversation. But right now we're trying to consolidate all of that in Jive and in that thread. So please go and look it up, or reach out to me and give your feedback and contributions. And we'd love to work with you guys to make sure we hit the target on this one and we deliver it right and get it right the first time. So yeah, that's the answer on that. John, anything to add on that from your side?
No, I don't think so. The extensibility is a little bit beyond my technical understanding, so I'll leave that up to you and Denys, the experts in that area. But as I said, yeah, if anyone's using the content app source code for any of your projects, if you are using it as a reference for building your own app, or if you're using it as a basis for your own application, I'd definitely love to hear about it and understand what you're doing. What things can we do in the future to improve that experience for you would be really good. Even if it's small things like documentation, could do with enhancing particular areas, extra information you'd like to see in the documentation. All suggestions are welcome, and we do take it seriously. Thank you. All
right, and I think that is just about it for questions. Denys, any last things you want to share with the guys? Otherwise, I suggest we end it early.
Yeah, I think we can end it early and give the feedback later.
All right. Well, if you have any questions about the content app, about ADF in general, John and I are always happy to talk to you guys. Reach out to us or Denys. Best place to get help is the Gitter channel. So if you go to the ADF Gitter channel, you'll find we actually have 246 people in there today. So that community is really starting to kick off. So if you want to have a conversation or get help or anything about ADF or the content app in general, that's a great place to go. Obviously, you can also use the Jive community to ask questions. We are monitoring the ADF space in there. So just to recap, we have a few meetups coming up. March 1st, one in London, one in Florida. Go check out community.alfresco.com to see the details. Next event is Office Hours with Richard on the 23rd of February, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah. With that, I just want to say thank you, John and Denys, for taking the time, and I'll see you guys soon.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and look out for version 1.1 of the content app coming in March. We'll be doing a blog post to announce it when it's ready. But
all right, excellent.
everyone.
Right, bye.
Okay, thank you, bye.